Hi. My special topic presentation for Sociology 354 is Child Abuse in America by Serena McKay. The topic is often not discussed because of its nature. I argue that poverty plays a huge role in child abuse and neglect because of inadequate care, single-parent households, and race factors. The presentation will look at research conducted in the past 20 years and how the media portrays child abuse cases. To begin with, there is a difference between abuse and neglect. Abuse is the horrible treatment of children through emotional, psychological, and physiological means. Neglect is not providing the proper care to a child. The first academic journal I found was Social Disadvantage, Severe Child Abuse, and Biological Profiles in Adulthood. The researchers suggested that families with less education, income, and who are single mother households have higher risk of being neglected. This graph also shows the percentages of perpetrators according to the relationship of the child. It shows that the mother is most likely to mistreat their child in an abuse case. The researchers conducted telephone and paper interviews of about 5,000 participants. They divided their responses by severity and type of abuse. They found that emotional abuse was most common at a moderate level. The participants who were in lower brackets of income experienced more stress because of poverty, which led to higher chances of child abuse to occur. The second article I found was Explaining Black and White Disparity in Maltreatment, Poverty, Female-Headed Families, and Urbanization by Amy Schuck. The article mentions that Black children are twice as likely to be victimized and they are overrepresented in the welfare system. I argue that this is due to race relations between minorities and police. The police continue to over-patrol high-risk areas because of high minority populations. This would lead to high interactions compared to whites. The journal also looks at female-headed households and its effects on child abuse. A single parent may not be able to provide enough income to properly feed their child or clothe them. The researcher looked at data from Florida's Child Protection Service's annual report. She found that cases that involved Black children were more likely to be investigated, but less likely to be confirmed of cases of child abuse. However, this is not the issue for cases of maltreatment. The data suggested that cases were more likely to have enough evidence to prove mistreatment and was associated with single mother households. This does support that poverty and race affect child abuse rates and cases. The last article examined cases of child sexual abuse. Prevalence and Processing of Child Sexual Abuse looks at the differences between child abuse in rural areas and urban areas. The researchers used data from Child Protective Services from specific counties. The researchers mentioned that there is a greater chance of interaction between police and poor areas and that women are more likely to be abused. They found that reports of child abuse were higher in urban areas because of rural area practices. This meant that individuals in rural areas were less likely to report. This is because of the relationship between the victim and abuser and because of how close-knit the town is. The research mentioned that police would rather take matters into their own hands than handle it through the justice system. However, the rate at which abuse occurs is higher in rural areas. Rural areas do consist of higher poverty rates, which would show the correlation between poverty and child abuse. The news article I chose looks at a specific case in Arkansas. CNN produced an article called "Abused 4-Year-Old Child Tells Police Her Name is Idiot." The story talks about a girl who was abused and only referred to herself as Idiot. The girl was being abused by her mother's boyfriend. This suggests that the little girl was growing up in a single mother household because she was not married or with the father. This could add to the mother's strain because her income was most likely lower than the father of the child and her boyfriend's. However, the boyfriend was the one accused of abusing the child. The mother knew that the abuse was occurring but did not report it. This may be because the mother wanted to keep the boyfriend around even though that he was abusing the child. Arkansas has a low median income of under $50,000. This links poverty to the girl's case. To the left is a graph that shows a comparison between the median household income of the U.S. and of an Arkansas. Arkansas's median income has been much lower than the U.S. The second media article I chose was also by CNN. The Best and Worst U.S. States for Children by Jacqueline Howard looks at state ranking for child welfare. Howard looked at 16 different factors to rank each state. She considered drug use and race as other factors. One factor she also included was a measurement of poverty. The article ranked New Mexico as last and New Hampshire as the first in child welfare. Out of the 10 lowest ranked states, 8 of them had the median income of under $59,000. These states were Arkansas, Alabama, Oklahoma, Arizona, Louisiana, Mississippi, Nevada, and of course New Mexico. The only 2 states that were above that bracket were Texas and Alaska. This shows that the median income declined, so did child welfare. As for New Mexico, which could be seen by the graph on the side, they had the median income of under $50,000, like the previous article. The graph also demonstrates different income brackets of all the states that were listed and all states that were not listed in the article. There are many other factors to include when looking at poverty. The first one I wanted to include was mass incarceration. In addition to the factors presented by the media and journals, mass incarceration has demonstrated institutional racism and has created more poverty. The ACLU and many other studies within the last 20 years shows that blacks are overrepresented in the jail population. The ACLU reported that 1 in 3 black boys will have spent time in jail in their lifetime. This is compared to only 1 in 17 white men. It shows that police are interacting at higher levels with minority populations. This issue also leads to more single-parent households, more specifically, single-mother households. Income from only one parent will increase stress and strain. The parent or mother may take their stress out through abuse. They also may not be able to afford enough food for their child or children. The graph here displays the differences in population in incarceration rates. However, this number has only been increasing since 2010. Obviously here it shows that the black population in jail is much higher than all the other ethnicities. This trend of racism occurred because of law changes about drugs in the 90s. Ever since then, we've only seen an increase of black population and other minorities in jail. Another factor that I wanted to include was housing segregation and its way that it contributes to poverty and child abuse. The picture presented is a demographic map of Chicago's counties. It divides each county by its population of white, Hispanic, and black. Obviously, the north is predominantly white and the south predominantly black, while the middle and towards the northern region is predominantly Hispanic. Housing segregation is the practice of denying an individual housings or loan based on their ethnicity or race. Sellers and even housing companies would deny showing someone a house based on their race. They may bring that individual to other houses in a certain area because another area is predominantly white. This practice then leads to concentrated poverty. Since some of these areas have a higher minority population, police are more likely to patrol those areas, which leads to more arrests and more investigations of child abuse. However, as previously mentioned in earlier slides, not all cases are found guilty because of evidence or because of lack of evidence. On the idea of housing, it is important to remember that the person investigating a certain case of child abuse has to decide if the house is adequate enough to take care of a child. They may decide that a house is too small in order for everyone to live in well. There may not be enough bedrooms or bathrooms for each individual child, or that there may be too many people living in one house. As for my analysis, the articles support the research from the journals because there is evidence to show that low income and child abuse are correlated. They agree that poverty does have a role in child abuse occurrence. Poverty may lead to malnutrition and strain. Poverty is also heavily present in the South and in rural areas. The differences between the media and journals is the way that the media stresses to blame an individual instead of including institutional factors. The first article by CNN blames a mother more for not reporting than it does blame the actual abuser. This is because society views women as only caring and incapable of harm. The journal looks at several factors that include systematic imperfections as well as individual problems on a larger scale. The media often ignores issues like mass incarceration and housing segregation. They choose not to list these issues because it is an institutional problem. They would prefer to blame an individual or even the victim sometimes. In all my research, I conclude that poverty plays a bigger role in child neglect than it does in overall child abuse. This is mainly due to income differences and in the way that an individual provides for their child. The last slide in this presentation is my works cited page. Thanks for listening to my video.